What's up everyone, AJ on AJ's Heli Journey here doing a video on my transmitter setup for my OMP Hobby M2 V2. There was a request on one of my videos about what my setup was, so I thought I'd put together a video on what my settings were in my transmitter and how I set that up. And as you can see, I do use a Futaba 16IZ. So a lot of this will translate very easily to any Futaba transmitter. With that said, if you're using Spectrum or other transmitter, as long as you know where to find your particular transmitter's programming language and where to find specific menu items, then really I think that this video could also be very helpful to you as far as the basic setup is. Fortunately, with this particular Heli, the initial transmitter setup and using the base setup is very simple. It's not very complicated at all. So the other thing is I didn't really put together anything formal for this, so I'm kind of winging it, so you'll have to forgive me if I kind of babble a little bit. Hopefully I can stay on point here. Anyways, okay, so let's get started. The first thing you need to do is set up a new Heli in your transmitter. The way that you do that here in the Futaba is you would go to you can go to either model select here, or you can go to linkage menu and go to model select there. Then you would select new model. I'm not going to do that here because it's already set up here, but when you click new model, you can just name it whatever you want, and the new model will be will show up there, and with all the default settings. Now the next thing you would do for initial setup would be model type. You'll select helicopter, and the swatch plate is important. You want to select H1. That in this particular transmitter is default, but and should be pretty default in any transmitter. It might be called normal. I do have a Spectrum, and I think on there it's normal, but anyways, you want the swatch plate to be H1. The other thing which is important, this is specific to Futaba, is that on most fiberless, so if you go to here to Servo Reverse, on most Futaba transmitters, you need, fiberless gyros, you actually have the throttle reversed. That's just how it works. But for this particular, for the M2, and I want to give credit to Ali Shimano, I hope I pronounced that right, on YouTube, because he noted this, and I really don't know if I would have figured it out myself, but you need to have this in normal mode. And while I give credit to Ali Shimano, I also want to say that I don't want to take credit for any of this setup, because I learned everything about how to set up this particular Heli and pretty much all my other Helis online through YouTube videos or forums and searches. So I didn't come up with any of this myself, so I don't want to take credit for that. Just I'm hoping that if anybody comes across this video and something wasn't covered in another video that they watched, or if this is the first video they come across to set up their M2 V2, that hopefully this can help you. This will help you out. So anyways, so that's important, very important for Futaba transmitters. Not something you really need to do, I believe, with other transmitters like Spectrum or otherwise. Anyways, the only other thing for initial setup is system type. Now I am using the OMP Hobby M2 V2 SFHSS version. On your Futaba transmitter, or again, or otherwise, sorry if I'm not naming specific brands, you'll know what you have. You will have to select SFHSS, If you don't have that because you have older transmitters, then I believe that you'd have to get a separate fast module to connect to your OMP Hobby M2 V2 fiberless controller. So anyways, but that's it for initial. That's before you bind everything. So once you have that done, what you're going to do is sorry, there's nothing to do there. The FSH SFHSS version comes with this little module here, little Futaba satellite, or sorry, SFHSS satellite. And what you would do is you would turn on initialize your helicopter and or your gyro, and then you would press and hold this this little button right there, and then this light would start blinking. Once that's blinking, oh, I'm sorry, your transmitter would be off. Sorry. Okay, let me repeat that. The binding process: start with your transmitter off, turn on your helicopter, your fiberless, connect the power source, then press and hold this button on the satellite here. This little light here will start blinking. It's a little orange light. And then once that's blinking, you would then turn on your transmitter just like that. Sorry, I got the timer on there. And in SFHSS mode, it would automatically bind, and you'll know it's bound when this light turns solid instead of blinking. So once you've done that properly, where you'll be at is, I'm gonna click on the throttle hold here, and I'm going to connect this. Sorry, just here we go. There. So once, so this is the little orange light that I said would be solid. So obviously mine is already bound. So it is solid light already. And literally after you do that, everything should work. You'll just want to check to make sure everything's moving correctly. So as you can see here, let me just, okay, so you can see the swash for the pitch moves up and down. Obviously the blades aren't spinning. I have the throttle hold, and then you'll want right and left aileron, and then forward and back elevator, and you'll be able to see that they're moving in the right way. If they're reversed, I believe this should be the process. You'll just want to go into your menu, and you would so if I did that, so let's say one of them was reversed, let's say the aileron was reversed, if I click that and reverse that, now you'll see that the swash, when I move to the right, it's going left. And sorry, maybe that's not clearly visible. Let's go this way. So there, if I move to the right because I reversed it, it's going left, and if I go to the left, it's going right. So obviously we don't want that. That's not how it's supposed to work. So I'm just going to flip this back the other way, and we'll check the swash, and it's moving the right way. So anyway, so if anything was reversed, which I don't believe it should be. These are pretty user-friendly and set up quite easily. Once you have that bound, it should work properly. So I mean, from there, you're basically pretty much ready to fly. Now with that said, there are a few other settings here in the linkage menus. There's really nothing else here to speak of for setup, except if you go to function, you'll want to assign the gyro, which is channel 5 here in the transmitter. And I can say that because the default setup is gyro on channel 5. You'll want to assign that to a switch. I have this assigned to SF, which is right at the top there, and I'll explain what that's for in a second, but you'll want to assign that. What I'll say is that's what I have, the two different they're not flight modes, but either the normal flight mode or the auto level mode. I have it set up on that switch as a separate switch. Some people like to set it up directly on their default flight mode switch, which would be their normal idle up and idle up 2, but I like it on a separate switch because if you have it set up on this, then for example, let's say you have the auto level on your normal mode, then you wouldn't be able to fly at that particular head speed in normal mode without the stabilization, because it's tied to that particular flight mode. And then to be able to get out of stabilization, you would have to flip it into idle up, which is perfectly fine, but I like this switch to have different head speeds. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions about that, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the rest of the setup. Anyways, so main thing here, channel 5 gyro, assign it to a switch. I have it set up to SF. That's about it in this linkage menu. There is no way that I know of that you can set up telemetry for the OMP M2 V2. I believe you can set up, I think it has built-in telemetry if you have a Spectrum radio, but not on the Futabas. Not that I know of. I mean, if you know of a way, go ahead and comment below, because you'd be helping me out. Anyways, okay, so we'll go to the helicopter, the model menu, and here, so we have conditions, which is your flight modes. The default usually has normal, idle up 1, idle up 2, idle up 3, and then throttle hold. So I don't use idle up 3, so I just deleted that. I keep idle up 1 and idle up 2, which is again on this switch at the top here, which is my SE switch. And then obviously I have throttle hold, which I have set up on this here, which is the SG switch. So that is that. And then I do have, so here on the AFR, these are in the Futaba, these are dual rates. What I have, I do have a little bit of Expo. Sorry, this is Expo and Expo and dual rates. I told you I didn't really prepare anything. I might be babbling, but anyways, in Futaba, I mean, I have -20. If you're on Spectrum, this is a, if you wanted to make it, and -20 in Futaba makes it a little bit more docile in the center. So for like hovering and stick movements to the center, it's a little less responsive, a little bit more docile. So in Futaba, that's a negative value. If you go to a positive value, it actually makes it more sensitive in the center. On Spectrum, it's the other way around. You'll want to go positive if you wanted to kind of, make that a little bit more docile. And you can change, so this is for aileron. And then you can do that also by going to the second page here, and you can set it up for elevator. And again, I have the same settings for elevator. I kept the rates at 100%. But again, if you wanted even more docile, if you didn't want to didn't want the XO to be more than -20, you could move this to just 90 or 80%, which would be just lessen the amount of travel, lessen the amount of servo travel. Again, I apologize if talking about Expo and dual rates is a little confusing to you if you're brand new. I definitely do a search to maybe try and understand that. Maybe I'll do another video to explain that in detail. I just want to talk about, if you already know that these are settings you want to adjust, this is where you would go and do it. And my settings, like I said, I keep the rates at 100%, and then I change the Expo to -20. Okay, so, and I just do that. I only have that on elevator and aileron. You could do it on the rudder, but I have my rudder as a full linear curve with no expo. Okay, so anyways, that's the AFR. I think the pitch curve. I have linear pitch curve for all my flight modes. Okay. So I keep that the same all throughout. So yeah, and here's the one, the big one, which is throttle curve. So you can see here that on my throttle curve, oh sorry, I have this on hold, so let me do this. I'm just going to disconnect this. I apologize, I should have probably done this at the beginning, but I'm not going to go back. I'm just going to explain here that you should definitely, for safety purposes, when you're going to bind your transmitter, there's a few different things that you can do as safety precautions, or you can do all these things before you bind, just to prevent any spool up issues. You would take off your main blades and take off your tail rotor blades, because then at least it won't, if it accidentally spools up, it's not going to fly off on you. What you could also do, instead of doing that, if you don't want to do this, I'll be honest, this is what I did. I pulled out all three of these. These are the motor connections, I believe, for the main rotor, and then on the other side I took off these three for the tail rotor. I could have that backwards. This might be for the main motor, and then the other side, the other three connections could be for the tail rotor. Either way, I pulled all three of them out so that when I did the binding, when I gave it power and then I bound it, just in case any of my settings were off, this was not going to spool up. If you want to be uber precautious, you can take all those out and you can take off the blades, and you should be good to go, because with the blades off, if this starts spooling up, it's just not going to go anywhere. So anyways, that is really important with regards to safety. Even if you're fairly sure, on the off chance that there's just setting you missed, that's something I think that you should definitely do. So anyways, now that I'm gonna, I've taken this off, I don't have to worry about it spooling up. Let's go here. I'm gonna flick off the throttle hold. So what you're gonna see here is in normal mode. I'm sorry, I was actually making an adjustment the other day. This should be a linear curve. So let me just show you how I actually make this a linear curve. We'll just remove this particular point. Then we'll go here and we're going to adjust this. Right now the rate for this is at -100. I'm going to make this a flat curve. So that's +10. +10 on Futaba is the equivalent of 55% throttle on Spectrum and some other radios. Some other radios use the same scale that Futaba does, which is -100, 0, and +100. So -100 would be 0, 0 would be 50%, and +100 would be 100%. Oh, sorry, my timer is going. In normal, I run at 55%, and then in idle up it's 65%, and then in idle up 2, so idle up 1, sorry, is 65%, idle up 2 is 75%, and this is for head speed. Okay, and by doing this, you're using the internal governor in the fiberless. I apologize, I don't have this, but I think that 55% head speed is around 4,500 RPM. I know that there is a chart that details that. I actually forgot to pull that up. I was gonna do that. Maybe if I have a second, I can flash and I do pull that up when I edit this video, I'll flash that. But I don't know what head speeds these mean. I just know that 55%, 65%, and 75% are all very, this heli flies very smooth. I don't have any problems with the tail keeping up, and also for my style of flying, which is, if you've watched some of my other videos, I'm still a beginner heli pilot. I can really get some good flight times if I wanted. So those are my throttle. Those are my throttle settings. Flat throttle curves, so that I can engage the governor in the flybarless. And so basically, what I do is I always have my throttle hold on before I connect this. And what I do is I will just pick. Usually when I do my backyard practice, I keep a really low head speed, so I use normal. But most of the time I'm in idle up, and because I just find it's really the smoothest when I'm at the flying field. The other thing is, I know some people in normal mode, like you saw earlier for my that I corrected here, they actually have they started at 0. I don't do that, just because if I make the mistake of trying to do inverted stuff in normal mode, I don't have the issue of the motor just dying on me if I go to negative pitch. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, but that's why I have that. Okay, so that's the throttle. So I've done pictures, I've done throttle curves. Really, the only other thing that needs to be adjusted was something I talked about earlier, which is the gyro. And the reason for this is so that what you have is you have a separate switch for your different flight attitudes. We'll call them flight attitudes, flight, flight modes, whichever you like. I really don't know what the correct way is to say it, but I fly sorry, my timer keeps on because it's attached to my throttle hold. Anyways, okay, back to the gyro. I have this switch so that if I need to, I can, it almost acts like a bailout, although there is no official bailout for this. I know that some people have been able to program a rescue in open transmitter, but there's no specific rescue or automatic rescue function in this, but there is the auto level, which you can kind of use as a bit of a rescue. So I have that on a separate switch so that I can use a normal or the auto level in any of my different flight modes. So how I do that here, like I said, I assigned this switch, the gyro channel 5, to this SF switch, and then here in the gyro menu of the Futaba, what I have here is I actually have it in the off position. So you'll see here under gyro rudder, if you click on that, in the first position, in this on position, this is basically normal, and it's you can do this normal, or you can do this in ABCF and just turn the rate to 0, but I had it in normal. It does the same thing, and then when you flick it to on, it is on this particular setting. How you do that is you would go here, you would click on, you can see this button here, and then you would select SF here, and then you would set the on off here, and you can see here which position would be on, on or off, and you can see that in this particular position down here, it sorry, did I mess something up here? Oh yeah, so okay, so here we go. I got to set it up again. So as I set, I would actually put that as on in this back position, because that's where I want this one on, and then go back, and now you can see it's on here, and then this will come on here. You'll have to do that the same here. I'm not going to set it up again, but anyways. And then you can keep this both as AVCS, which is basically head and hold. Normal would be considered rate. There is no rate with this particular heli, but by having it in normal mode, or rate mode, it turns off the auto level in the gyro. Now, how do you know that that's off in the gyro? So let me just show you. I'll flick the throttle hold again. Always be safe. And then I will initialize this, and I'm going to show you. So let me let this initialize. Okay, once it's initialized, you'll have to be able to see this little LED here. Let me just, there, you can see those two LEDs. When it is solid, that means that it is in a solid light. LED light means that it is in auto level. Sorry, I drew a blank there. When auto level is off, you can see the little red light is blinking. That means that it's off. Now, the big difference in these two flight modes is obviously in this mode here, which is not, I'll call it normal mode, but so it's not the auto level. You can fly inverted, you can, flip the helicopter over, you can do loops, everything. When you flick that to auto level, you will not be able to, it'll restrict you, and it'll do its best to level the helicopter and not allow you to flip it over. Okay, it's the best way I can kind of explain it. But anyways, once you have that on a separate switch, then you can fly in either normal, idle up 1, idle up 2, and flick that on and off. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So that is really the only other setting. And again, in that setting, turn it on off in these two settings, and then you can do either this in normal, or you can have that in AVCS and have it in as 0. Turn the rate to 0, and then in the second, if you want, and then for the auto level, just have this AVCS. I have the default is 50. You can actually put it on 40, 30, 20, 10, whatever you want, and it'll activate the, just don't have it at 0, because if you have it at 0, that means it'll turn the auto level off. So I just keep this as normal, and I'll be honest, the reason I do this is I read somewhere that if you have a rate in there, it could burn out the tail motor. I don't know how much truth there is to that. I haven't had any problems whatsoever, but anyways, that's what I have it set up. Sorry, I'm rambling, I know, apologies, but I hope that explains it all. Okay, so these other ones, Gyro 2 and Gyro 3 for aileron and elevator, these are inhibited. They don't, as you can see here, oh, I don't even know why I have that on. That should be inhibited. Anyways, doesn't apply. These should all be inhibited. They don't really have a function anyways. But anyways, okay. So that's it for the gyro, and that is it for my setup. The only other thing I didn't talk about was the timer, but I don't think that's within the scope of this. As I mentioned, I have the timer set attached to my throttle hold, so it turns on. It just turns on when my timer turns on when I flick the throttle hold off, which I'm not going to do because the helicopter's on and this would begin to spool up. So that's it. That's all. I hope that covers everything. I apologize for some of the rambling on, but I hope I got most of the settings point across. If you have questions, comment below and I will either respond there, or if I need to, I'll do a little short video to address something that I may have gotten wrong or need to expand on. But that's a transmitter setup. I should also note too that if I didn't mention this already, all my settings in the flyberless unit here are all stock, like they're all default settings. Maybe if you want to know, I can go through. I do know how to change these settings. It's out of the scope of this video, but if you're interested in the video on that, I can also do that too. But sorry this was so long. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for hanging around if you've hung around this long. And I hope you subscribe, and I hope you check out all my future videos. I was at the heli field earlier today, and I totally forgot my GoPro at home, so I didn't get a chance to do any flying videos. So that's why I thought this might be a good time to try and put this video together. Okay, thanks a lot. I will save you from any more my rambling. Thanks for tuning in. Until the next video, this is AJ on AJ's Heli Journey signing out. Cheers. Bye.